Hi, welcome back to Everyday Makers. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to start on the storage box build. Hi, thanks for joining me today. So today I'm going to start on the storage box build. I've made a few posts on this. It was part of my poll that I did about what project to do next, and then on our Facebook page, I posted some pictures of this finished box. And I have someone else that wants one, so I thought I could show you all how I go about making this. Just show you some of the methods that I use. They're probably not the best methods, they may not be the correct methods, but it's what I use and what I do to get the best results I can. So a little bit about this box. I make it out of red oak. It's planks that I can buy at Menards, fairly cheap. It's much more expensive than pine or anything of like the same size, but I just like the way it looks for something like this. So the main construction of the box here, I use rabbet joints here on the corners, which I'll show you how to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this short sides about 4.25 wide or long, whatever you want to call it. And then the long sides will be about 9.25. That's the rough stock I'll start with. And then there's a floating bottom, basically meaning it's not glued in. I do a dado cut all the way on each side and then fit that in. There's no fasteners in this. I use only glue and clamps. I just like the way that looks more clean. As whatever you try to do to cover up a fastener, a screw or a nail or whatever, you can still kind of tell it's there. I mean, if you're really good at it, I'm sure some people can get it to where you can't tell, but I just like the glued look. Down inside the box, you'll see there's some posts down there that hold this little tray, and that's again just glued up. This one I made for a friend that I have to finish. Probably the best tray that I've done so far. The seams are real nice. It's just wonderful. Really happy with it. So that lays in there, and then it's got a top that I cut to insert. So I, whatever you want to call it, dado the edges so that it rests in there, so that top's not gonna go anywhere. It's got a little bit of play in it. I think that's about it. We'll start with cutting the main chunks of wood, and we'll kind of go from there. All right, so here we are over at the chop saw, my chop saw station. I've got my side panel laid out here, my side material. Like I said, this is red oak. It is 1/2 inch by 6 inch by 6 feet. So that's what we'll use for the sides and also for the top. What I like to do is take this bigger piece and measure out exactly how much I'm going to need for the box, and then add on about 1 inch or so, maybe 1.5 inches. Cut that down so I have a smaller chunk to work with, because I like to cut either end. I like to start from cut ends rather than the ends you get from the manufacturer or the lumber yard or whatever. You don't know how perfectly straight those are. Mine might not be perfectly straight, but at least I'm measuring from my straight, as it were. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I figured out it's about 27, 28 inches of material I'm going to need. So I'm going to cut it to about 30. Just a nice round number. Swanson Speed Square. If you don't have one and you do any kind of woodworking, or if you want to get into woodworking, this is one of the first things that you should buy. It is amazing. We can get into more of what it does on another video, but Okay, so I'll cut that. One other thing before we start going to any high speed or time-lapse footage. Safety goggles. You might think you don't need these even for one cut or whatever. I've had too many things fly in my eyes, and I've had too many close calls with things to not wear these. Adam Savage did a video on this particular set. These are DeWalt's. I'm a big DeWalt fan. As you can probably see behind me, the stool I'm sitting on is a DeWalt stool. After I saw him make that video about these, I immediately went out and bought them. I think they're like $9. They are amazing. The adjustable strap, the section that sits against your face is nice and squishy and soft. They are awesome. If you do get these, one tip. A lot of time after I'm done doing something, I'll put them here and then I'll go around and I'll do a bunch of stuff. That creates a lot of condensation on the goggles on the inside because of the sweat on your forehead. So if you can remember, take them off or put them down around your neck. I don't always remember. You'll probably see me a bunch in this video with them sitting right here, and then I'll take them off and I'll go, but little tip for you. Tool tip within a build video. Cut off here. I'm going to take maybe 1/4 of an inch off of this end because this is the stock end from the mill. So I'll take that off and then I'm going to cut my 2 4 1/4 chunks and 2 9 1/4 chunks out of this. So quick pause on the time lapse here. So I measured my first piece at 4 1/4, and then I measured my next piece off of that piece. Because I'm only doing 2 pieces, that's okay. If you're doing, say I had to cut 5 4 1/4 chunks off of this piece, and I wanted to keep using another piece to mark my next line, always use the original piece that you cut. If you don't, that little bit of your pencil width, because you can't get right up next to or right on that edge, if you keep using the next piece you cut, that pencil width will grow and grow and grow, and then your pieces will stagger up. So always use the first piece you cut. Okay, so I got my 2 ends, got my 2 sides. I'm gonna do a little bit of rough sanding on these. I like to start with nice sanded pieces on when I'm going over to the table saw to work on all my rabbet cuts and everything. So I'm gonna do a little bit of sanding. Okay, so I've got my pieces here, got my palm sander out. I know you've seen Craig. If you've watched all of our videos, you've seen Craig using one of these orbital palm sander. Absolute must-have, especially if you have small shop like me or like Craig or anybody else, and you don't have space for a big sanding setup, you know, a belt sander or a disc sander or anything like that. They have small versions of that, but this just is amazing, especially if you're making things that are going to be around little kids. I sand every single surface of everything I make, so time to see. This board, along with almost every other piece that I've bought, has a bow in it. Probably can't see, but this side does this. This side is pretty well flat, but this side, can't see that, but it rocks back and forth. So that's this way on the long piece. So for the long pieces, it rocks this way, bowed like that. I have run into that with every piece of red oak that I've bought and used, because this is the one I'm making now is the fourth one of these I've made. Every time I've bought this wood, I have the same problem. So if you know why that is, if it's something about that I'm buying it at Menards, or if it's something with red oak inherently, when you, because it didn't seem to look like this when I bought it, but then when I cut it, maybe when you cut red oak it does that, I don't know. So if you know, let me know. Anywho, I've got this laid out, not laid out, cut and sanded. I'm going to lay it out. I found that with making these to put the bowed side on the outside, obviously, because then the flat sides just make better rabbet joints. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to lay this out. I'm going to look at which parts I want to be the top, which the bottom, you know, if one looks better than the other. Lay them out on here, and then I mark where I want my which side I want my rabbet joints on, because you only do one per piece. I just mark them with an R. So when I go to the table saw, I know which side to run. So that's what I'm going to do now. All right, we're good to go. I'm going to take this over to the table saw and I'll show you how I make rib. Okay, so over here at the table saw, rabbet joints. If you don't know, you can look it up. Obviously, you can look up anything, but you can see that is a rabbet joint. So I have cut a little notch out of this piece of wood that this piece slides into. The benefit to this over a butt joint, and a butt joint is literally when you don't cut anything, you just put two pieces together. This is stronger. There's more surface area for the glue to attach to. It looks a little bit nicer because you kind of have that, you know, little cutout in there. To me, it looks nicer. So that is kind of your advantages to a rabbet joint. They're not terribly difficult to do. If you had a dado blade or a dado stack, it would be way easier than the way that I do it. I only have the one blade. I could get a dado blade. One, I don't want to. Strictly for I don't want to be changing my dado and single blade in and out. I use a single blade far more than I would use a dado. Number two, they're expensive, and I have this. It works fine. It's a little more time consuming, but I think a lot of people wouldn't get a dado. To me, I mean, that's a little more advanced tools. Yeah, I just kind of like to keep it simple. A lot more cuts though. So, see that here in a second. Okay, so I'm set up here at the table saw. I will adjust the camera here in a minute so you guys can see what I'm doing. I've got my pieces marked where I'm going to do my rabbet joints. Going to do just under the depth, the width of my rabbet cut, just under half an inch, which is the thickness of my wood, so that it can receive that, and then I'll be flush on the outside as well. I'm going to do about 1/4 of an inch deep on all my cuts. So I'll set up my fence, set up my depth, and we'll get cut. Something to remember before I get started. The little emergency stop or safety stop on your on-off switch, if you have one, which I think almost all table saws do. It's this little red piece that pulls out. I pull it out and set it on the table when I'm working on my depths, because I'm doing a lot of measuring right next to the blade. You just never know what could go wrong. And you could bump that switch or something and cut a finger off. I always pull this out when I'm doing this kind of measuring. If I'm just cranking it up and sliding the fence, I don't pull it out, but when I'm getting my hands on the blade, right next to the blade, I always do that. So. Okay, everything's set, ready to go. Everything's set and ready to go. One thing, if you're going to do rabbet cuts, if you're going to try this method, always measure. So I said I'm doing a 1/2 inch in, a 1/2 inch wide rabbet cut. Always measure to the left side, the furthest side from your fence. If you measure straight off of your indicator on your slide, on your stop, your fence, you will be a blade's width too deep. And I've done it many times, and you have, you know, that 1/8 inch, 1/16 of an inch, whatever overlap on your rabbet cut. So always remember that. So before I get this fired up, I'm going to do one pass at the current depth, the current setting for my fence on each piece. I'll bump it in, do another pass, bump it in, do another pass, and then just keep doing that until I have cleared away everything from my rabbet joints. Okay, got all my pieces here. Came out pretty well, as you can see. There you go. Now you can see one of the cuts I didn't quite get all the way clean in there, but if there's something that thin, I don't go back and do it again. I just grab my file, which I was gonna do anyways. I just like to clean up these cuts before I start to test fit them. So I'm gonna do that. We'll test fit it and see how I did. Probably could get out a clamp and clamp these down, but I'm lazy. Just do this way. Okay. So all the joints line up. I have a little bit of overhang. I went a little bit, see right there, I got a little bit of overhang. I probably went a little deep with that, but with this particular project, I like to do that just a little bit. That was somewhat purposeful. So when I go to sand, I really like to round those corners and blend that edge really nicely. So that gives me the material to do that without compromising the strength of the joint. So I think we're looking pretty good so far. So next step, I will cut the bottom. I'll dry fit this together, measure my inside. I'll cut the bottom, adding a 1/4 inch, well, 1/2 inch in each direction to account for the dado. And we'll get that test fit, and then we will be ready for glue. So I'm gonna just lightly clamp this so that I don't have to, see, I already messed it up. If this works, it helps out a lot. Okay, there we go. Okay, so got it clamped. We're looking pretty square. Check my measurements on the inside. 3.5, 3.5. Yeah, we're looking good, nice and square. Nice and square. 9 3/8. Or maybe a 1/16 out of square, but I can live with that. Okay, so we are right at 8 5/8. The beauty about making your own stuff, tables and all that, I just write all my stuff down on it and then sand it off or just leave it. Sometimes I don't bother looking for paper, waste of paper. And we're gonna call that just shallow of 3.5. So I'll do 3.5 under. Okay, time to cut our bottom. Okay, got my stock here. This is more of that red oak. This is a 1/2 inch by 6 inch. I think I get by a 4-footer, I believe is what it is. The actual thickness is 7/16. It works perfect for that floating bottom and for the insert tray. Really like this stuff. So I'm going to cut it to length on the chop saw. I'll probably go right to my length. Take off a little bit at the end, cut it to 8 5/8, and then I will take it over to the table saw and I'll rip it down and we'll be close. Perfect example of why you measure twice, cut once. I just did it at 9 5/8. I would have had a really large bottom. Heyo. Bottom. You may notice me getting like down and really checking my angle here, or my cut line. Pick this up, sorry. Ooh, I took my glasses with. When you're starting out doing woodworking stuff, or just cutting 2x4, cutting large chunks of wood, you don't pay much attention, at least I didn't at first, to blade width. And then when you start doing stuff like this, and you start making your cuts and you realize you're off by like a 1/16 or an 1/8 everywhere, or give or take, and you realize it's all the blade width. And so as you start doing more fine woodworking, you'll find that you really have to make sure your line is on the proper side of the blade. It's just something you end up getting used to. So just a tip, if you're just starting out and working on this, make sure you take into account blade width. All right, over to the table saw. This is a nice, pretty simple rip cut on the table saw. Our width was 3.5, a little on the underside. So we'll set that on the fence. Fences are great. They're wonderful. I love the readouts, make it a lot easier, but I always double check it. If it's stuff that I'm wanting to be very precise about, which this is. See, that's a little bit shy. A little bit too far under 3.5. That's about right on there. Okay. And I don't have an outfeed table, so you'll see a lot of times when I'm doing these cuts, I just push straight off and just let it fall off the end. If it's something I'm worried about, sometimes I'll put a pillow down there or something to catch things. This red oak, I'm not really too concerned about it breaking or chipping or anything. I say that when I do it this time, it's going to break or chip. So, okay, 3.5, 3.5. Good, good. Nope. Got to adjust my depth. No matter how many times you run a table saw, it's still nerve-wracking because it's a huge spinning blade that doesn't care what it cuts, and it just makes me nervous every time. So, just bought this nice push stick. Very nice. I mean, it's got the grip on it. It's got the little tongue to catch everything. It's by Millscraft. That was actually the first time I've used it. Was on that one push, so like it so far. So should have the sleeves rolled up just in case. All right, I'm gonna check this fit here. Okay, so something I did wrong, and it's sometimes good to do these wrong things on camera. I did not take into account my dados, so I did not add a 1/2 inch to both of my measurements, because it's gonna go in a 1/4 inch on either side. So I'd add a 1/2 inch total width and a 1/2 inch total length. The good thing is this now becomes the bottom of the insert tray. It is cut basically perfectly. I'll probably sand it down so it's a tight fit, so it's not quite as tight, but I've now skipped a step for later. So I'm gonna make another cut on the chop saw, add my 1/2 inch, and then I'll come back, rip the next piece again, leave my fence right where now, add a 1/2 inch. Okay. Can you tell I'm an amateur woodworker? You know, I cut that bottom and I picked it up. I'm like, man, this thing seems really small. And it was. Okay, so maybe it wasn't some of this stuff, but I was ripping a piece of 1/4 inch, I think it was just some 1/4 inch ACX plywood, and I think I was in a hurry and kind of got about 80% done with the piece and pulled away a little bit, or something happened, and it caught the blade and kicked it back, hit my leg, and shot across the shop. Had a really nice big bruise. I was expecting to see a big gash in my leg, but it didn't really break the skin. And it was ripping a piece about this size. So, bought this, tried to take extra safety precautions. You can never be too safe when it comes to a table saw. I'm gonna say that a lot in this video and videos to come, but My brother lost part of his finger, just the fingertip, to a table saw. I believe this table saw before he got his new one. Yeah, they're not anything to take lightly. So if you have one, be safe. If you want to buy one, be extra safe. Get the safety stuff. Okay, that's the last I'm going to say about it. Just be safe. Now let's check that. There we go. Did that right. Bottom. Next is to cut the dados. About to get started. I marked all of my pieces with an arrow, telling me which side was the top so that I know which side to do my dado on. And I got to make sure I do it on the inside, which is where I had my rabbit cut. So I'm going to cut these, and hopefully it works on the first try. I'll have to do a few passes, so this will probably be sped up or time-lapsed or hyperlapsed. Again, because the wood is 7/16, I think I said, thick. So I got to do a few passes on each one to get the right thickness of dado. There we go. Sorry, I had trouble finding. I got a little bit of play in it, but that's totally fine with me. So I'm gonna dry fit this. I'll probably need to do some sanding on the bottom just to get it to fit in, but we're looking good. I mean, that's pretty good. The bottom is a little wide and a little long, so I'm just gonna take it to the sander. I'm not even gonna, it's not enough. I gotta take off to run it through the table saw again. Palm sander, and just do each of the sides just a little bit, knock some down, let that tighten up a little bit. Okay, I did my finish sanding on the bottom on all the surfaces because after I put it together, because the bottom is recessed a little bit, recessed, or it's offset. It's not all the way to the bottom of the sides, whatever you want to call that. Because it's set up like that, it's hard to get all the nooks and crannies of the bottom, and then sanding inside the box would just be very tedious by hand once it's assembled. So I do all the finish sanding at least on the bottom before I even put it together. So I'm gonna hope that this fits a little bit better. Not that it didn't fit well before, it just could be better. Can't tell if somebody's home in the house or if my stomach's just making a lot of noise. That's my stomach. Hardest part's done. Now it's gluing and waiting and sanding. And I gotta make the top is pretty tough. making that top is kind of weird. Yeah. We're gonna glue. So I've got all my stuff laid out here. I've laid out all the pieces. I've got clamps galore. I'll put 8 clamps on this, and I know you're probably thinking that's a lot of clamps. Yes, it is. But it ensures a good tight fit, no gaps. I use the Titebond Premium, Titebond 2 Premium. I like it. I've even got some of the Titebond Pro. It's the outdoor stuff. When I made the door for the treehouse, I slathered it in the Titebond Pro, and I have had no issues with it. So yeah, I will. I'll set you guys up here somewhere that you can see. I'll do a little bit of talking on this, but mostly it'll be just me gluing or time lapse. So. Yeah. Okay. So you probably just saw a time lapse of that monstrosity of a glue job. Job. Hey, I can't say that on this channel, can I? I think I can. Yeah. Clamp ups can sometimes be very tricky. You know, the more clamps you get on, the better. But I only have certain clamps. As you can see, it doesn't quite fit very well. So I had to get a little bit creative, or a lot creative. But I got it there. We have glue seeping out of every joint, which is what you want. Try and do some cleanup right now, so sanding is not later. So I think we're in a good spot, hopefully. We'll see. So until tomorrow, that's going to sit all night. So the glue sat overnight. We're looking good. Easy peasy. I'm going to do a bunch of sanding now. As you can see, we've got some overlap here, a little gap, which I sort of do on purpose with this oak because it does bow. That leaves a smaller gap in the middle and a larger gap on the edges, so it's just a lot of sanding to contour those together. And yeah, I think that sanding pad's still good. So a little bit of sanding time lapse for you. Enjoy. See, now look what we have. Nice, wonderful blended, rounded edges. Got a few gaps that I think I might fill with just some little bit of wood glue, and if I can salvage some sawdust out of the palm sander bag here to kind of tone it. But I'm gonna switch to a finer grit. Do a little more detail work on this. Sanding will be done soon. know, sorry, let me. It's pretty amazing. You know, going from the coarse grit, I think this was 60, yeah. And then I just jumped up to 220. I probably skipped a few in there. The coarse just really hogs off the material quickly, and that's what I need. You're crooked. Sorry. I just need to get rid of material quickly, so I start with the 60. If I didn't, I probably would have started with some, I think I have some 120. I probably would have started there if I didn't have to get rid of so much excess on the sides. I sort of use this thing as like an angle grinder for wood. It basically does the same thing an angle grinder does. If you put some coarse grit in there and really put some elbow grease into it, which I did. My hand's tired now. But yeah, it turns out beautifully. As you can see, so far, not a ton of work. I think I have total about an hour and a half maybe in this, and it's looking beautiful. So gonna turn my attention to the insert box. Hopefully get that glued up. Okay, so I've got the bottom. If you may remember earlier, when I messed up my measurements and I cut a piece too small that was going to be for the bottom. Well, this is now the bottom of the insert tray. I did a little bit of sanding off camera so that I know it's going to fit in there. It fits. Each side fits across the entire length of the box, so I know this is going to fit no matter what orientation the end user puts it in. I'm going to rip. I just have some of this this stuff left over from previous builds that is perfect for, this is the height, or the width that I want. It'll end up being the height. I need to chop that down a little bit. I have a piece that is perfectly dead on in length. I just got to rip this down, so I'll rip both of these two pieces down, and we will be gluing the sides of the box of the insert here in just a few minutes. Okay, got my pieces here, my sides, my ends. I'm gonna test them out on here. I'm gonna do a little bit of sanding, mainly on the ends where I'm gonna have joinery. Like, see, that one's a little, a little not great. So I'm just roughly putting these up here. Just placing them, making sure my lengths are correct. Prefer to be a little bit over, because I'm going to do the same treatment to this one that I did to the large box, and just sand the bejesus out of it. Yes, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my lengths. Enough jibba jabba. It's glue time. But I just spent about 2 hours shopping for Christmas. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks for joining me today for Dan's Life Lessons / woodworking. Okay, here we are. It's been sitting for almost an hour. Most of the glue's somewhat, yeah, we're in a good spot. We can do this. So I want this part to be my top, so I'm gonna flip it, apply glue, clamp it to the base, but I want to use I'm going to use this to put my 2 clamps on There, I'm going to put 2. Yeah, I got enough. I'm going to put 4 on this, here and here, so that way I'm applying even pressure across that. So I'm going to do this real quick. That's done. So that's going to sit overnight because I have to go to work in about 25 minutes. So tomorrow we'll sand this, we'll make the top. We will finish this thing up tomorrow. For you it'll be in like 5 seconds, but for me it'll be tomorrow. Okay, so it's done. Oh, what? I know. It's finished. The insert turned out wonderfully. I just love how it blends on the sides, on the end grain or the side grain. A little bit tight tolerance with getting this in and out. It fits fine. It's just a little bit tight. If the box is a little bit like this, it gets wedged kind of easily. I did a lot of sanding on it this morning. But it fits, works nice. The top is cut out. I was gonna video this, but it's a pretty easy process. I mean, I just cut a piece of wood the size of the box, measured the thickness of my walls, and then cut it, you know, sort of like a rabbit joint, but did my cuts on the table saw. It fit the first try, sanded it, and we're good to go. So really appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, and subscribe, please. That way we know what you guys like that we're doing. So have a great day, and thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.